Leonardo DiCaprio spent months freezing in rivers, ate raw bison liver, and even crawled inside a dead horse, all for one film. But that wasn't his only extreme story. 20 years later, DiCaprio finally confirms the painful truths behind The Revenant, the film he tried to erase, and the shocking survival stories fans never knew, until now. Chapter 1, Leo slept in a dead horse and ate a raw liver. Few actors have ever suffered for a role the way Leonardo DiCaprio did for The Revenant. Directed by Alejandro G. Iñárritu, the film became infamous, not just for its brutal story, but for the punishment endured behind the scenes. Iñárritu insisted on absolute realism, demanding remote wilderness shoots, harsh weather conditions, and natural lighting no matter the cost. As DiCaprio later put it, nobody was crazy enough to really take this on. Every frame had to feel authentic, and for Leo, that meant pushing his body beyond its limits. One of the most talked about moments? Crawling inside a dead horse carcass. That wasn't a special effect, it wasn't a prop. The carcass was real animal skin, stitched together, with steam billowing out in the cold air. Leo's disgusted reaction wasn't acting, it was genuine horror. You'll see the gag reflex on my face. It's real. And it wasn't the only time reality blurred with performance. In another unforgettable scene, DiCaprio was forced to eat raw bison liver. The prop department originally planned a gelatin substitute, but Iñárritu demanded authenticity. Leo bit into the real thing, feeling the cold, slimy organ hit his tongue. That moment too stayed in the final cut. As if that weren't enough, Leo repeatedly submerged himself in freezing rivers, wrapped in a 100-pound elk skin and bear fur coat. Soaked through, his body dangerously close to hypothermia, he pushed through scene after scene. I was constantly risking hypothermia. Even the equipment couldn't handle the extremes. Cameras malfunctioned from the cold, shoots were delayed. Crew members walked off set in frustration. They couldn't take it anymore. And when the weather turned, disaster struck. The snow melted. Entire snowy landscapes vanished mid-production, forcing the team to relocate across continents to Argentina, chasing winter all over again. We had to shut down production multiple times. It wasn't just physical exhaustion. The psychological strain was immense. Leo described moments when he could barely separate himself from Hugh Glass, the character he played, a man crawling through icy wilderness, driven only by revenge and survival. I can name 30 or 40 scenes, hardest of my life. Behind the scenes photos show Leo slumped between takes, covered in frostbite makeup, eyes glazed from fatigue. Every image told the same story, an actor living on the edge of his endurance. It was filmmaking pushed to the brink. And while the world would celebrate the film's raw power, few knew how close DiCaprio came to breaking under the weight of it. But what most fans didn't realize? The Revenant wasn't the first time Leo had faced extreme survival. In fact, his life off screen had already been marked by near-death moments far stranger than any film, and that's where the story takes an even wilder turn. Hours of work went into this. Enjoyed it? Subscribe for more stories like this. Chapter 2. Leo survived a shark, plane explosion, and skydive fail. Leonardo DiCaprio's brushes with death didn't start on a movie set. Long before The Revenant, he faced life-threatening moments that would shape his worldview and nearly end his life. One of the scariest took place deep underwater. On a diving expedition in South Africa, DiCaprio climbed into a metal shark cage, eager to get close to a great white, but no one could have predicted what happened next. A tuna tied to the side of the cage became wedged inside and attracted a massive shark. The shark's head came inside, thrashed inside the cage. For a terrifying few seconds, the great white rammed against the bars, snapping its jaws just inches from Leo's face. Even the veteran guides were stunned. That's never happened in 30 years here. DiCaprio later admitted he wasn't sure he'd make it out alive. I was bitten, but lucky. But Leo's near-death stories didn't end at sea. A few years later, he took a skydiving trip and nearly paid the ultimate price. On his tandem jump, the main parachute failed to deploy. Hurtling toward the earth, Leo and his instructor had seconds to react. The instructor struggled to cut the failed chute, reaching for the backup. I saw my life flash before my eyes. The emergency chute finally opened, just in time. Leo landed safely but shaken. He's never attempted another skydive since, and still, fate had another close call waiting. In 2010, DiCaprio boarded a Delta flight out of JFK Airport, bound for Moscow. As the plane accelerated for takeoff, he gazed out the window, just in time to witness disaster. I looked out and saw the turbine explode like a comet. A fireball shot from the engine as it blew apart mid-runway. The pilot slammed the brakes and guided the plane safely to a halt. No one was injured, but passengers later reported panic and screaming as smoke filled the air. Leo walked away, physically unharmed, but visibly shaken. 3 terrifying horrifying incidents, 3 escapes from death. For DiCaprio, these moments weren't just dramatic anecdotes, they left a permanent mark. In later interviews, he explained how surviving near disasters pushed him toward a deeper mission, protecting the planet itself. After filming Titanic, Leo began learning about climate change and environmental destruction. A meeting with former Vice President Al Gore opened his eyes to the crisis. It wasn't just a political issue, it was personal. I got exposed to the wonders of nature through film. Those wonders and the fragility of life became his passion. Through documentaries, philanthropy, and advocacy, DiCaprio has dedicated much of his off-screen career to environmental causes. But while these survival stories were known to fans, there was still one story Leo rarely spoke of, a film shrouded in secrecy, a project he tried to erase from history, and that's where things turned darker than anyone expected. Chapter 3: The Secret Film Leo tried to erase before Titanic made him the biggest star in the world. Leonardo DiCaprio filmed a small black and white indie movie with his friends. It was meant to be casual, experimental, a late-night improv session between rising young actors. The film was called Don's Plum, but over the next 2 decades, it became the one project DiCaprio tried to erase from history. Shot in 1995 and 1996, Don's Plum brought together DiCaprio, Tobey Maguire, Kevin Connolly, and a circle of close friends. The premise was simple: a group of guys sitting in a diner, talking, arguing, exposing their insecurities. But what started as a loose short film turned into something bigger. The director stitched the footage into a feature-length cut. Without DiCaprio's full awareness, Leo had only filmed for one night, playing a character named Derek, an abrasive, misogynistic figure who berates women and picks fights. When he first heard the character's description, Leo joked, "So I'm playing an asshole. Okay, I'll play an asshole times 10. But he didn't realize those moments, intense, raw, unscripted, would someday hit theaters. When a Variety article leaked the film's existence under the headline DiCaprio Maguire Ice Indie Pick, Leo was furious. He feared that, with Titanic about to launch him into superstardom, an edgy, offensive indie film could derail his image. He wasn't proud of Derek, and he didn't want the world to meet that version of himself. In legal depositions years later, Leo made his position clear. "I never intended this as a feature. It was a favor for friends." But by then, the film's producers were already preparing to distribute it. Feeling betrayed, DiCaprio and Maguire fought back. They argued that the project was never meant to be more than a private experiment, a short for acting reels, not a commercial release. Producer Dale Wheatley, refusing to back down, sued Leo and Tobey for blocking the film's debut. The legal battle dragged on for years. In 1999, they reached a settlement. Don's Plum could never be distributed in the US or Canada. It was quietly screened at the Berlin Film Festival and in a few European countries, but remained practically invisible elsewhere. Then, in 2014, Wheatley reignited the controversy. Fed up with years of silence, he uploaded Don's Plum online, allowing anyone to stream the lost film. DiCaprio's lawyers immediately stepped in, forcing it offline. Leo stayed quiet publicly, but to Wheatley, the silence spoke volumes. Leo knew it made him look bad, but we thought he'd be proud. For Wheatley, the fallout wasn't just legal, it was personal. Friendships crumbled, careers stalled. The film became a curse rather than a breakthrough. Looking back, DiCaprio admitted feeling blindsided. "They were my friends. I was shocked." Wheatley saw it differently. "We were scapegoated, our careers ended, our friendships died." And Kevin Connolly, caught in the middle, shared his regret in sworn testimony. "I wanted the film released, but Leo wasn't gonna let it happen. What began as a fun project between friends ended as a fractured memory, a secret buried beneath legal documents and broken trust." For 20 years, Don's Plum remained the film Leo never wanted you to see, but despite winning the legal battle, it couldn't stop the whispers. Even with legal battles behind him, Leo's strangest controversy wasn't in court, it was a bizarre rumor about a bear. Chapter 4: The bear attack rumor that went viral in 2015, just as The Revenant was generating Oscar buzz. A single headline sent the internet into chaos. The Drudge Report, known for sensational stories, posted an alarming claim: DiCaprio raped by bear in Fox movie. The headline went viral instantly. Fans, critics, and casual readers flooded social media, horrified and confused. Could the film really feature such a shocking, graphic scene? Parents called for bans. Commentators debated the film's boundaries, but inside the production, there was disbelief. Crew members quickly stepped forward to clarify no such scene existed. In fact, the bear in the film was female, ferociously protective of her cubs, not a predator of DiCaprio's character. The reality was far less scandalous, but no less intense. In The Revenant, DiCaprio's character is attacked by a grizzly in one of the film's most brutal sequences. Mauled, dragged, flipped over, he barely survives the encounter. The scene was a carefully choreographed mix of cables, stunt coordination, and CGI enhancement, but to some early reviewers, the bear's movements looked a little suggestive. Film critic Roger Friedman's review fueled the fire by describing the attack as, "The bear flips Leo over and dry humps him." The internet took it from there. Within hours, memes flooded Twitter. News outlets scrambled to correct the record, but the headline had already cemented itself in pop culture. When asked directly, DiCaprio shot down the bizarre rumor. "No, I wasn't raped by a bear. It's a brutal attack, but not that." Despite the absurdity, the rumor wouldn't die. Late-night hosts joked about it. Moviegoers nervously braced for an imaginary scene. Meanwhile, DiCaprio stayed silent, focused on promoting the film, letting the internet's imagination burn itself out. Only years later did he acknowledge how surreal it was watching the story explode. Ironically, the controversy only heightened the film's mystique. Behind the scenes, it had taken extraordinary effort to pull off the bear attack. DiCaprio spent days rehearsing with a stunt performer in a green screen motion capture suit, acting out every claw swipe and slam. The team combined practical effects with digital magic to make the bear terrifyingly real. For DiCaprio, it wasn't a joke. It was one of the hardest scenes of his career. Every take pushed his body closer to exhaustion. Every rehearsal demanded physical precision. Nobody expected the bear story to overshadow everything else. But somehow it did. The rumor became part of The Revenant's legend, a bizarre footnote in an already extreme production. For DiCaprio, it was just another chapter in the film's journey from brutal set to cultural phenomenon. And yet, all the pain, absurd rumors, and survival stories led to the moment Leo had waited 20 years for. Chapter 5, the Oscar that took 20 years and a bear attack. For years, Leonardo DiCaprio's Oscar snubs became their own Hollywood legend. Despite delivering iconic performances in films like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, The Aviator, Blood Diamond, and The Wolf of Wall Street, he left every Academy Awards empty-handed. 5 nominations, 0 wins. Each loss sparked memes, headlines, and frustrated fans chanting online, "Give him the damn Oscar already." Then came 2016. The award season turned into a battleground. The Revenant versus The Martian, The Danish Girl, Steve Jobs. DiCaprio faced off against Matt Damon, Eddie Redmayne, and Michael Fassbender. But for once, critics and audiences seemed united. Everyone, from fellow actors to late-night hosts, agreed this had to be Leo's year. On Oscar night, the moment finally arrived. Julianne Moore opened the envelope. The crowd held its breath. And the Oscar goes to Leonardo DiCaprio. The audience erupted into a standing ovation. DiCaprio stepped onto the stage holding the golden statue that had eluded him for over 2 decades. His speech wasn't about revenge or vindication. It was a humble tribute to the team behind The Revenant. He thanked director Alejandro Iñárritu and cinematographer Emmanuel Lubezki for pushing him to his limits. And then he used the world's biggest platform for a cause close to his heart. Let's not take this planet for granted. In those few words, DiCaprio tied his personal victory to the global fight against climate change. It wasn't just an acting award, it was a call to action. But not everyone celebrated. While many praised his raw, visceral performance, others questioned whether the award honored his acting or his suffering. Critics debated if the Oscar recognized talent or simply the grueling ordeal he endured for the role. Reviews pointed to the film's infamous challenges, freezing rivers, dead horse carcasses, and of course, the bear attack. DiCaprio addressed the criticism in later interviews. "I have no regrets. I knew what I was signing up for." For DiCaprio, the Oscar wasn't just a trophy, it became a symbol. Every hardship he'd faced, on and off screen, was etched into that little gold statue. The frostbitten shoots, the physical risks, the emotional exhaustion. It was validation for years of sacrifice, of roles that pushed him past his breaking point. With the win, he closed a long, painful chapter. He shifted his focus toward producing, championing environmental causes, and mentoring younger actors. He'd finally climbed the highest peak in Hollywood and survived the climb. And yet, behind the glamour of that night lay the untold stories, the secret film he tried to bury. The bear attack scandal, the near-death experiences no camera ever captured. 20 years after risking body, career, and friendships, Leonardo DiCaprio has finally confirmed what really happened, and why he'll never forget it. If these untold stories shocked you, imagine what else Hollywood's hiding. Hit subscribe now so you never miss the secrets, scandals, and truths behind the stars. And tell us in the comments, what's the wildest thing Leonardo DiCaprio ever did, on or off screen?